Thank you. So anyways, I'm really happy to be here doing this because it's the first time I've done a speech at a Lorca meeting without including Raffiumitis. And I love the Raffiumitis, and a lot of people like them very much too. But it would be nice to have a variety picture here. It's a variety show, kind of the Ed Sullivan show of the entomological world. And I'm going to be talking about mimicry concerning 10 orders of insects. The 10 orders are Diptera, Hymenoptera, Coleoptera, Lepidoptera, Hemiptera, Homoptera. That sounded like a song lyric there. And Neuroptera, Mecoptera, Mantidae, and that sounds like a family. Is that an order? Mantoni. Todia, Matodia. Okay, Matodia. Okay, and Todia. Orthoptera. I'm not used to that because a long time ago they were just lumped in with like cockroaches to Orthoptera. I'm back in the old days of the Lutz Field Guide. Kind of dates me, doesn't it? No, actually, I was only 12. I was 12 years old when I got that, so it's not quite so ancient. But anyway, and also arachnids. I have some arachnids, the spiders, the mimic ants, etc. I didn't include the owl-faced butterflies and things that are like mimicking sticks and leaves because I thought that could be a future presentation. So that's more camouflage than mimicry. But I do have well, I'll just tell you right now, there are 16 types of mimicry listed in Wikipedia. And I know that's just a small portion because they didn't even put audio mimicry, the wing beats giving the same sound of a bee or a wasp. But anyway, they had 16 types, which I'm not going to be talking about. Basically, I'm focusing on Batesian mimicry because that's what I've been studying. And that's named after Henry Walter Bates, and it's about the wolf in sheep's clothing type. In insects and spiders, the model is a stinging, foul-smelling, bad-tasting food item for predators. There are cases where one type of mimicry is changed into another when further study by scientists show that both the model and mimic are toxic. So like the monarch and the viceroy butterfly. And that type of mimicry is called Müllerian mimicry, named after Fritz Müller, who immigrated from Germany to Brazil in 1852. And I'm also going to show a few examples of the auto-mimicry. Now that was really hit me that, hey, this is where an insect or a spider shows false body parts, usually the head and antenna at the posterior part of its body. So you don't know whether they're coming or going. And but no, that's what they want you to think, that back thing is the vital head area. So they might just lose a little chip of their wing instead of their own head. And lastly, bizarre and grotesque faces that we recognize as faces, insects and other predators. We don't know what they're considering scary. I know that there must be some success in that because there's a lot of it. There's just constant what we recognize as scary faces. And you'll see those. So on with the show. I'm going to be doing the first slide. Oh, it's up there already. I'm starting with the most popular, most often mimicked insect, the Pepsis tarantula hawk wasp. And there are two mimics in the southwestern United States that are really good. One is a robber fly, but the even better one is a Midas fly. And they're out and about when the Pepsis are flying. And for many years, I was wondering why I didn't get very many of those Midas flies. And it turned out because I was assuming they were Pepsis, because they fly, especially the Midas, with the same legs hanging out the back and a kind of a slow gliding flight. So next. Okay, there it is. Here's a close-up of the Midas fly, and it is really, really good at looking like a Pepsis. And you know, it goes beyond and above the usual mimicry, because they twitch their wings and they move their antennae in a very wasp-like manner. So I've seen them look very wasp-like just when they're sitting, crawling around on a flower like a milkweed, and there'll be Pepsis right there next to them. And you really have to look a few times to see. So I'm catching everything with orange wings now. That is a Diptera. It's a Midas fly in the family Mididae. Yes, and I'm going to show you something in the next slide that will pretty much astound even the people that know about it. All right, here's another big Midas. This is from South America. I believe it's like Peru or Ecuador. And so every Pepsis has its own Midas fly, it seems, and there's a lot of other insect orders that we'll see Pepsis mimics in. Here's the one I was talking about. This is a pantophthalmid, a giant wood-boring timber fly. It's a small family of flies, but it includes some of the largest of all flies. The body length can be 3 inches. And I don't think their wingspan is quite as large as the Heros, the species of Midas that I got from my trade in the British Museum. It's in the drawer right there. You can look at it after the show. But look at the wings right in the middle of the wing diagonally. It has a strengthened, thickened edge, like the vein is exaggerated, and it sort of slopes down to indicate that the other wing is there. You see that? That's pretty distinctive. I mean, it really looks like it has 4 wings on that fly. And so it's like it was already factored into the design of that wing. There's a group of cerambycid longhorn beetles that are often seen in Arizona called Tragidian. And these are great Pepsis mimics, and they do the flying very well too, with the legs hanging out. I have a population of another species in the Tujunga Wash where I live, and they like to be on yucca. And if you look at the yucca stalks, you'll see sometimes crawling up the stalks and feeding on the flowers these big beetles. And there'll be Pepsis flying around. But lately, there have been very few Pepsis. One year, they had a lot of beetles out there and almost no Pepsis. So that doesn't help a mimicry going very well. I mean, it's like your model is nowhere. Where's my model? You know. But they have, well, that's true with parasites too. You'll have one year where all the parasites are gone because maybe they didn't have enough luck finding their victim, their host. So it's always rough. Parasites' life is far from easy. Now here's a Ceseid moth. Now, are you familiar with that one there? I think I have a name on it. Pepsoides or something like that. No, this is from Texas, and it's not a Melita. It's some other genus. Do I have it up there? Yeah, it is. And it is Alcathoe pepsoides. No, that's just the pink variety. But there it is, right there. I got that off the internet, so at least I got a name in case somebody like this guy, wanted it there. But I want to have names whenever I can. Now, here's the female of that same species, and you notice the other one had the orange antenna that's often encountered in Pepsis, like our favorite one of our favorite species called mild eye has orange antenna of Pepsis. And there's always a mild eye mimic. But this one has the sexual difference where the male looks like a mild eye and the female looks like a Thisbe, which I don't understand why the different sexes imitate two different species, but that seems to be the case. Now, look at the ovipositor, or whatever that is. Those are, I think Bedros was talking about kind of a stinging thing. Well, these are long hairs going off that. Does anybody know if those are as an ovipositor? I think they're just Circe.
I know that the Sicilians, oviposit into
right, which makes sense. But sometimes they have these lateral these little tail things sticking out on each side too. So I want to have that as a future thing. What did anybody find out about those little extensions from Ceciads? So that would be fun. I'll go home and they'll say, I have to know. And now here's the assassin bug family Rediviidae, and they have amazing Pepsis mimics, but only in the tropics. I have yet to see a Pepsis mimic assassin bug in the major United States areas. So, but just like there'll be black Pepsis and there'll be orange-winged or red-winged Pepsis, you'll have a mimicry that covers the other one. And this is the black Pepsis mimic, probably a different species than the other, but it also has the yellow antenna, which a lot of Pepsis also have yellow antenna in that area. This is South America, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, places like that in the rainforest. And also in the rainforest, we have katydids. You recognize this as a katydid? But it's pretty close to a Pepsis appearance, for a katydid, that is. And the thing that really gives it away is those big jumping legs. But you just like kind of imagine that, not having that, and the wings spread open. It would be pretty much like a Pepsis. And there's also a dark Pepsis mimic for a katydid, too. Those are both from South America. But other wasps in the Hymenoptera, specifically the Sphekidae, thread-waist wasps, will be Pepsis mimics. And this is a great one from French Guiana, and it's called Dinatus. These are some of the largest sphekids I've ever seen. And look at the millimeter scale. We're talking about 2.5-inch body length. And you can see the thread waist like a mud dauber. It's closely related to our mud dauber. And also closely related to the mud daubers is the Sphex tepanicus, which is found in southeastern Arizona, the Huachucas. And they get to be enormously bigger than most Sphex that are other closely related Sphex. And that has a good mimicry of Pepsis, so much so that I probably didn't catch all the ones I should have, because I assumed they were Pepsis. And another one that's found in the same canyons, like Miller Canyon, Ramsey Canyon, Garden Canyon. This is a giant ichneummonid wasp, and it has a name called Rhynchoophian species. And they're flying around on the Baccharis very much like Pepsis. Okay, now I've switched to another mimicry group, probably the second largest, which is the velvet ants. And I have a velvet ant there from, I believe it's South Africa, or it could be Asia. They didn't specify in the picture. But it has no, Blaine, you're probably the best guy to ask. Is that a Naphosa beetle? I mean, a spider? No, it's definitely not a salticid. So I was thinking of Naphosidae or Clubionidae or something of that ballpark. But it's a great velvet ant mimic, that's for sure. So I thought he would be like enjoying seeing that little critter following its model around. And you'll find out that, oh, look at this one. This one's a no-brainer. This one is a salticid, mimicking a specific type of velvet ant. Not perfect, but pretty darn good for a spider. And here's one more commonly seen. This is Phidippus apacheana, found in the southwestern states, mostly Arizona. And in Arizona, Daisy mutilla, probably klugii. And they're running around the ground in a very similar twitchy, nervous way, very jerky, jumping rock walk. And they confused me a few times when I saw it, and I'd say, "Oh, it's jumping spider." A very good mimic is the clerid beetle here, Enoclerus, and I don't know the species on that, but it's Enoclerus is the genus, and those are in Arizona, and they walk like a mutillid. Another good mutillid mimic is the Pyrocoridae family of true bugs. I guess they call them scentless plant bugs. Isn't that what you've heard? Anybody? I never smelled them, so I don't know. I didn't take one whiff. I don't know, but it's related to the box elder bug, I believe. And a lot of true bugs will mimic spiders, not spiders, ants. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about other slides. When they're immatures, when they're nymphs, and then as soon as they grow up to be an adult, they stop their ant mimicking. The ant mimicking days are over. Now there's a good one from Arizona. And that's interesting because there are no white spotted that I've ever seen mutillids in Arizona. So what could that mean? That could mean, well, there are some in Mexico like that. And I'm almost wondering if that could be a case where there used to be those, and they've kind of disappeared, but the mimic remains. So that's something to be, figured out. But they very, very velvet ant-ish because they have that nervous stopping and starting and going zigzagging along the ground. Now, I'm almost speechless over this. Does anybody know what that is? Sulpugid, sun spider, wind scorpion, camel spider, whatever you want to call it. Sulpugid mimicking a velvet ant, or at least kind of, it was suggested by several people that posted the picture. I don't know if that counts, but I just wanted to put it there. There's a good ant mimic fly of you said there was Eulididae or Ulidiidae. Yeah, I have to work on that for a while to get that smooth. He has that down. And I got that when I was on what was it? That we did a show in Baltimore, Sharon and I, and between the shows, we ran out to there was a Hilton Hotel in Baltimore, and there was a strip of woodland forest there. And I didn't get much, but I could see when I swung my net, I got all these black ants that turned out to be flies. And they were just crawling around. They didn't take off on the wing. And those wings are just there, I guess, because it's a fly, it still has to have wings, but it didn't use the wings very much. And of course, if you want a red ant mimic, there's some others. This is not something I saw, but I saw that on the internet, and I like that for a fly mimicking a red ant. Anybody know what this one is? It is an ant mantis. Good, and it's a juvenile. It's a juvenile. Like a lot of things, they'll look like ants when they're young, and then they grow up to shed their skin and be an adult, and they're no longer an ant mimic, but they use that time during their growing to look like an ant, maybe for extra protection. Is that what it is? I got to ask you those things. I'm very impressed. Thank you. That's great. And now I was mentioning the spiders that mimic the ants. Here's a spider, and I don't know the family. It could be a salticid, because most of them are in this group of ant mimics or salticids, but it's pretty weird. And there's the real ant, so the model and the mimic, and the mimic is stalking the model. As a matter of fact, it was a good hunter, because the next picture shows the feast. Yeah, it has the exact spikes in the exact same place, but I think the spider has only one. What is that called? Is that Blaine? Was that is that thorax plate? What is that called scientifically? Cephalothorax, right? Thank you. And the ant has different segments of its thorax, so it's fused together, but it has bumps representing those segments. So they really go all the way on that. And look at how they were so successful. They tricked the ant into thinking it's a neighbor, and it just like sinks its fangs into its neck area. There's another salticid. As a matter of fact, when I went to the Amazon quite a few years ago, it was about like 1993, 94, something like that, with a bunch of you guys that were Lorquin members. I guess none of them are here now, but this was crawling around, galloping around, I should say. Galloping is the word for it, because they were fast-moving army ants. And it was traveling in the herd of the army ants. And like these spiders always do, the pedipalps there are wiggling like an antenna to be as ant-like as possible. Here's another ant mimic spider. Notice that the segments are illustrated there of the abdomen of an ant. Spiders usually don't have segmented bodies, right? So that's a strange thing. Also, look at how the head is simulated by those big knuckles, or whatever you call them. Yeah. And even at the base of those antennae, the phony antennae, which are just the front legs, it has little shiny patches that look like eyes shining at the base. I don't know what this moves like, but I have to imagine it does its wiggling antenna routine. And one of the most spindly I've ever seen. This one is really a good thin ant mimic spider, salticid. Now we're getting into the yellow jackets and hornets. And I would call this, we said this is going to be about mimicry rings. I would call this a three-ring circus. A three-ring circus mimicking the model Vespula squamosa, which used to be called Carolina, I believe. The eastern orange jacket. I don't call it yellow jacket because it's the orange color. But anyway, there's a Ceciad moth and a robber fly, Lafria safrana. Lafria safrana. And those are only found in the east, because the wasp is only found in the east. Okay, we have a murder hornet mimic, a Ceciad mimicking the infamous Vespa mandarana. And the head of the wasp is simulated with just a patch on the thorax. That's just the thorax there that looks like the wasp's head. And it looks like a pretty good size moth, because the mandarana is one of the largest hornets. And I think this is found in the same area. It's like Taiwan, Japanese, it's Japan and China. And here's some from probably the same area. I know this is found in like Vietnam as well. A syrphid fly mimicking a Vespa. And I don't think that's Mandarana. It's like Aphanus or some other species. Got a bone up on my tropical Vespids. Here's a longhorn beetle that's becoming very hornet-like. And a live one there showing that they're very, very wasp-like in their appearance. And this one is also. And that one is.
Where are they found?
Oh, these are found in, the last one here is Southeast Asia, but I think those other two were European. Next time I'm going to put all the names and localities on everything. This is good. This is a Southeast Asian katydid. Okay, the katydid looking very hornetish. Now here's the Polistes, the paper wasps, and you might recognize these from being like southeastern Arizona. I got all these in one trip to Miller Canyon and the Huachucas. And you have the yellow ones, Flavus. The most common one is the big black and yellow Comanches. There's a Apaches. All these Indian names, I like these. And the dark one is Canadiensis, which is mystified because it doesn't occur in Canada. It's one of those mix-up in the data labels or something like that. But anyway, those are all found in the same areas in the Huachucas. And look what else is found in the Huachucas. Mantis fly. Perfect mimicry of the Comanches wasp. These are on Baccharis with the wasps, and they're flicking their wings and putting them up like that, and they even fold them like a Vespid wing. They look like they're folded. And the Vespid wasps are one of the only wasp families that actually fold their wings, so they're actually like, folded in half when they hold them up. And there's a species found also a little more in Texas, I believe, called rubiginosa, and that has its own mantispid mimic. But here's the kicker. Here's what I really like. All of the Pempsis mimics in the southwestern United States is one species. I think the species name is Brunia. And let's see if I don't have it written there, but I can let anybody know if they want to know the genus. But it can be in any species of Polistes that's in its area. It's like a chameleon where it knows which one is there. And it's the same species, but it's found in almost every Polistes species pattern. I think that's pretty far out. There's a Flavus, that could be Apaches. I'm sorry, that's probably Apaches mimic. And here's one that's mimicking a more of eastern species called Fuscatus, the Polistes, that is. This is still that Brunius. And here's a mixture. And doesn't that top one in the middle look like a Scolia ardens? The big scoliid with a red tail, and it has even the blue metallic wings. So it gets out of the Vespids and into the scoliids there temporarily. A couple others probably easy to recognize, Polistes. The bottom row failed. They got an F on that. They really didn't qualify because they look like pretty much normal neuropterans. How about this one? Anybody recognize what family that's in? It's a leafhopper, a cicadelid, sometimes known as sharpshooters. Yeah, they're jumpers. But this is in that same family of, tree hoppers and leafhoppers and spittlebugs. That's another group that's very closely related to cercopids. But this one is the most wasp-like I've ever seen. I collected this in both Ecuador and in Brazil in the rainforest. And I saw them and they were flying around and landing and twitching and being very wasp-like. A good syrphid mimic is in the Huachuca Mountains. This is Sphinxomorpha. I don't think it has anything to do with a moth. Loweye from Arizona. Here's another Suceid moth. And do you know the genus on this, Dave? That looks like the common one we have on the sycamores. Robinia, something like that. I bet on that. Because it's found in several color varieties. I've seen black ones and I've seen with a little red on them too. But it's pretty common as far as Suceids go. Is that what that is? I believe that. I believe it. I don't know what this is, but this, yeah, he got the thing on it, on the nail on the head. This is a good mimic of a Polistes. Some kind of now I think this is not a Suceid. Would you say that's an Arctiid of some kind? I pick the darndest ones, don't I? I mean, if it stumps a moth guy, I feel pretty cool. Well, we'll have to do a follow-up on those.
That's a moth.
Yeah, that's a moth. You see the feathery antenna? And it just boggles my mind how much that is like the wasp. Well, a lot of these I got off the internet, and some of them are not divulging, so shame on them. I think they're too worried about, they don't want to be caught, or maybe they just don't want to give it away and have a bunch of photographers snapping away.
Like, take that picture and upload it onto iNaturalist and let them tell you what it is.
Put it on their back, yeah. I like that. That's a good idea. Very good. You did? Okay, good. Good idea. All right, and when I was in Ecuador, I collected this wasp and this moth. How about that? Now that's pretty much an Arctiid of some kind. What's that? Can't hear.
So the one on the right is the moth?
Yeah, it is. Yes, you're right. Correct. Yeah, and but I think that's a fantastic mimic. This is more of a moth. You could tell that's an Arctiid of some kind. Is that in the Tanukidae kind of group?
Yeah, it's in that general group.
Right.
There's a huge number in
the
tropics.
I love them. I mean, I almost gave up on them. There were too many for me to handle in Ecuador because.
One Tupperware, I had like 40 species, and holy, I will never be able to.
Right. So they're really good mimics, and like he said, I don't even know if there is a way of getting all the identification on those. Maybe the genus, and that's about it. Right. They are day flyers. Well, no, they're actually, I got them at the Blacklight too. I think they're both. Yeah, day and night. All right, here's a plate from my book. I'm a future book. I'm not public. This isn't out there yet. I'm doing a follow up to my robber fly book, showing all the other families. This is a Syrphidae plate that I did a long time ago, and then I did kind of a retrofitting. I did some retrofitting on it by putting some other things. I had a single stripe right down the middle. Then I did the other fly half the fly, which I do anyway. I don't know why people say, "Hey, you're not half bad." But I just tell them, look, I like the way it fits in the square, and it's just me being an graphic designer and artist. I just can't help but think that other side is sort of meaningless when you can identify it from that and still have a good picture. So I like the symmetrical look. Now this is something I think we have another surprise for our mantis lady. It is a mantis, and it's probably like the other thing, an immature, mimicking very well an ichneumoniid wasp of some type. So that's one to ponder for a future thing. And maybe you're right, the eye naturalist would be a great idea. Has anybody seen one of those? That's a scorpion fly. But it's mimicking a certain type of ichneumoniid that has exactly those same markings on the wings, and it's called cryptokylus. Cryptokylus. It's not called cryptokylus. The model is cryptokylus. This is oh no, not cryptokylus. I'm sorry. Compsocryptus. Compsocryptus. Cryptokylus. I don't know what the devil that is. And then there's a beetle that's mimicking an ichneumoniid. Did you ever see ichneumonids that have white in the middle of their antenna? That seems to be common. For some reason, they have a white band of varying thicknesses. That's about usually the look of an ichneumoniid with that white banding on the antenna. I don't know where that's found, but there again, we're going to have to look into that. Now here's a plate from my upcoming book, Wings and Stings, which is what I'm going to call it. And it's the Trogus group of ichneumonids, which have this flattened dorsally, ventrally, completely like a pancake, flattened abdomen. And the bottom two, or maybe the bottom middle ones and the bottom side ones, are ichneumonids species. And I don't have any way of getting that beyond that because people just do. I'd have to go to museums and see what they have on their labels. I know they've been published, a lot of species, but where's a key? I don't know any key that you can actually get those figured out. More typical ichneumonids in my plate, but the bottom one is why I put it up there, because there's a Pepsis mimic on the bottom. And that was the one I think I showed you earlier on the Baccharis. It's a large one, about 2 inches long. It's really a huge ichneumoniid. Okay, here's a surprise. It looks like a meloid, but it's a cockroach. That's mind-boggling, isn't it? A meloid mimicking cockroach.
It's a cockroach mimicking a meloid.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Did I get it backwards?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I'm getting overwhelmed a little bit with you. That is, but it's mimicking a lysid beetle, the family Lycidae, the net wing beetles, which are bad tasting. I'm sure the cockroaches are bad tasting as well. So that could be in that other category of Malarian instead of Batesian. I don't know. A roach that mimics a ladybug. How about that one, Steve? You like that? A ladybug cockroach. And it is so fantastic as far as mimicry is. That is like close to perfection. The only thing gives away is the antenna, right? Just the antenna. That's a roach that seems to be mimicking a cicindelid, at least in the pattern. That pattern looks exactly like many tiger beetles have the exact pattern that displays right there. And they probably run very quickly like a cicindelid. That's from India, by the way. I know that. And I think the species is Theria olegrangeni, which is a mouthful. All right, Tenebrionidae, mimicked by Monolema, the longhorn beetles that are on the cactus in the desert areas. This is a good example of a foul-smelling beetle and a non-foul-smelling beetle that wants to be confused with that. These are, I'm stepping away from the southwestern things sometimes a little bit because I'm just overwhelmed by the enormity of the mimicry. This is Pachyrhynchus weevils from the Philippines. These are from the Philippines, the Pachyrhynchus, mimicked by the genus Doleops, which are cerambycids. And each Philippine Pachyrhynchus has its matching Doleops. So you can look and find one, and if you never found one before, you could be pretty sure that somebody's going to find a Doleops that matches your Pachyrhynchus. So it's almost like a game or like a bingo or something like that. You could just put a board out and just see how many you could find. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. And name them when they come up. Okay, now we're in bumblebee land. I saved the bumblebees for kind of towards the end of this. The plate of syrphids is something I put together. I think it says 2022, so it's a little more on the recent. And my book on robber flies, two bees, two wannabes. That is the question. And what I have is the top one and the lower one below it, the mimic and the model. And I mean the model, I mean the mimic and the model the other way. And so they're fantastic. There's a beautiful syrphid that I was talking to Jim Hogue about this group. I don't think that's a cryorhina, though. I think that's the Hadromya grandis, which is very similar. I think it's only a few little differences, aren't there? Like that little spike on their hind legs or something like that. They're big ones, mostly found in Oregon and Northern California. And a European species of Pacota personata that really mimics some of the European bumblebees that have white tails like that. And it's like, you know, there's a whole complex of white-tailed bumblebees. There's a fly that looks like it. And now here's a fly that mimics it from Vietnam. This is I'm not a fly. This is a sphingid. This is a big sphingid that mimics a xylocopa more than a bumblebee because it has that wide body with the different look to it. The dark wings. It looks very much like a xylocopa carpenter bee. Okay, here's a California beetle. You know that one, right? Erlicades leona. And it's something I've never collected yet. I've looked for it. As a matter of fact, we went up to the locality like Mount Pinos. It's a good spot for it, except when I go there, it's not a good spot. Yeah. Yeah. I want to hear it now. Let's do it now because we don't want to wait any longer. We're waiting.
I was
Yeah.
on a date up in the mountains with a young lady on a blanket, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw that. I dropped, grabbed my neck.
That kind of ruined the evening, huh?
I have never seen a wine with something attached.
Yeah. Well, that's a great one. Oh my goodness. This is getting good. Wow. Okay, now how's this one? A staphylinid that looks a lot like a bumblebee. I think this is an omus, like Hirtus or something like that. It's like Europe and Germany, and I think it's even in the British Isles. This is a big staphylinid. Is about an inch long, and from time to time you see one on eBay, and I've never managed to get. They always snipe me out of that. So I guess you have to just go to Germany and collect them if they'll let you. The Maliflora epipium from, it could be tibialis. There's another species with the little yellow on the tibia from Ecuador. And it mimics a group of orchid bees. And it happens to be having a Polistes feast there. Those are big robber flies. They're over an inch long, or an inch and a half long, actually. All right, I was telling you about this. Yeah. Isn't this the one Jim, you were talking about? A weevil mimic showing the snout of the weevil, which is probably just an appendage coming down from the wings. It looks like it's part of the hind wings. And then the big swollen eye patch, the phony antenna, and the real head of the thing is looking the other way. And they probably have a way of wiggling those too. Wouldn't be surprised. The salticid with the face of a fly sticking out of his rear end. Now that's pretty good. It looks like some kind of diptera, those big round eyes like that, and kind of the same concave face there by the spinnerets. I don't know what genus that is, but I know it's a salticid, and that caught my eyes as being a good mimic. How do you like that? The back end of a spider. I think it's saying, take me to your leader. Oh, man. How do you like that? That's some kind of orb weaver. Yeah. Orb weaver spider. Does that look like some kind of a reptilian snake or something? Yeah. And not only does it have the eyes and the position and the proportion, but it even has bumps that look like scales to perfection. And I would imagine that is scary to a small animal that has some kind of knowledge of warning on a snake, about a snake. This might be a frog, a red frog. There's not too many. Could be one of these. Well, you know how the frogs sometimes have those points on above their eyes, So it looks like a pointed eye thing, and it looks like the little enclosure of the thorax and its own face with the legs look like a grinning mouth, like definitely an upper lip. And those are all tropical. They're probably from South America. Sometimes they could be Asian. I have to check. Does everybody knows that, right? The peanut-headed lanternfly. But I have to differ. I think it's much more like an alligator-headed lanternfly.
It's like that big, so.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. People say if it's only this big, why would it look like an alligator? Well, I'm thinking that when a baby gator or a caiman or whatever it is could be hatching out of its egg. It could be something pretty small like that. So the baby would still look like that, and maybe that's a case where it's imitating a young gator or a croc. But then it could just be a croc. That's the worst one I've done so far.
Oh.
No, croc like a joke, like, oh.
Yeah, I was a croc of something. Yeah. Now, here's a happy clown. Look at the happy clown there. I think you've seen this on trucks. They have those like U-Haul trucks, and they'll show you those pictures on the U-Haul trucks because there's something about a happy spider that makes everybody feel better when they're driving, I guess. But that's pretty amazing to be that close to a face, you know. But it gets better. It's getting better. It'll be more crazy. This is a little bit less happy clown. This is kind of a scary from the movie, It or something. It looks kind of like whatever his name was. Yeah, the Pennywise. That's what. They look a little bit like that. That's the question. I'm putting these out there and just seeing what's floating and what people have, because it hits me that there's something going on there. I'm blown away by how many there are. Now this one's pretty a no-brainer. This one looks like to me like a spider with the legs going across. It's a moth. Is that a pryalid of some kind? Yeah. Or are those are crambid? Which is, is that one and the same? Pretty much all the same. Okay, so it's a moth like that. But I mean, those legs are pretty obvious, like looking like legs there. A cassidid tortoise beetle. Just in time for Halloween. It even mentions a tortoise beetle feeds on a Brazilian wildflower and creates the scary illusion of a grinning jack-o'-lantern. Well, the jack-o'-lantern face seems to be running wild with insects because there's more jack-o'-lantern pumpkin carved faces than any other facial resemblance. It's a weevil, but I think it looks like one of these Chinese masks that have, faces painted on them. Maybe about an inch. That's a good. Well, wait a minute. That's the. Yeah.
Poisonous beetles.
Yeah. Okay. It could be, but you know what I need? I need another one that is showing the mouth going the other way, because then I'll be having the happy and the sad, the two masks with the entertainment, right? Comedy and tragedy, right? I want to have the other one just so I can put those on a comedy and tragedy thing. And there's a blue one of the comedy. These are from South America, mostly Peru and Brazil. I don't think so. I think that might be on a fruit, some kind of. They just it doesn't even look. That looks like a dead beetle to me. I mean, the way they just posed it there after they caught it. It's. Oh yeah. Okay. It could be very well true. This one's really on the creepy side. I was looking at this on an eBay auction. They call it the Jolly Roger weevil. But to be honest, it doesn't have the crossbones, so it doesn't quite make to the Jolly Roger, but it still does look like a skull. And, you'll see those fangs up and down. Well, there's more than that. That is only a slight fang look. What do you think of that? Now we're getting really creepy. This is an African longhorn, cerambycid, that even has a septum there in the middle. And it even has little holes there for the blood vessels to come out of it. There's too much detail there. I would say that's too much. This fly from Australia is a tachinid and probably in the genus Rutilia. But I like that little Mardi Gras mask it has there. It looked like you would put that on a Mardi Gras little celebration. It's white, which gives it more of a skeletal thing. But look at the little nostrils there. I love that. That's a wow. Why didn't they put this on Sesame Street? Does that look like that belongs on Sesame Street or something? That is that's an African cetonid, probably Pacnota, the genus Pacnota in the cetonines. And it usually sits in a flower with that sticking up in the air to be as scary as possible. Now, that's a great example of the tooth mimicry going on, where the teeth are positioned so much that it can actually bite. And that, I just don't think they can be an accident. Neither can this. Look at this guy. This is one of those that they're nightmarish, kind of a goblin bug. Look at those nostrils there. Aren't they fantastic? And I don't know what that means to other animals. What?
That's small.
Yeah, I mean, if it was bigger, then you'd really have an answer. But to me, that's one of the most freaky. Now, on a lighter note, I just thought it'd be nice to have a fresh strawberry spider here. Even has the little hairs sticking out like a strawberry. And I don't know what that signifies. Why would yeah. But I think that's kind of a little just humor for humor's sake. It just doesn't seem to have any purpose, but it's fun. Yeah. Okay. Getting ready for a drum roll, getting close to the end. I took this picture because I had all these Anthea sexguttata that were mounted in lifelike crawling positions. How do you like this one, Steve? Is this a good one? Yeah. Well, too bad. If I had those, I would have put them in the corner. but the fact that they're crawling around a stack of dominoes, I just think that it had to be. I had to do that. So wouldn't that make a good poster just for the hell of it? I think a lot of people would buy it just and then you could just call it mimicry, even though it isn't. It's just could be just fun. Okay. I have to say I've been working on the mimicry a little too long, it seems, because I'm even guilty of being a mimic, and I think you can see. I had to do a little bit of that. That's the worst thing I ever saw. Yeah, this is a good example where I can just put a few little touches of makeup and look like famous movie stars, comedians, and of course Groucho Marx. But you know what? If this is his TV show, This Is Your Life, right now we'd have a big spider coming down if you say the secret word, which would probably be something like exoskeleton. So I had to end it with this. This is my final picture, and it's been a pleasure. And of course, I will be happy to answer other questions.
Not totally related to mimicry, but earlier you said that he was not collecting the
Yeah.
How does one go about doing that? Like, how does that happen? I mean, we obviously hit the taxonomy.
You can.
Well,
It's the time that you went there was Randonia, right?
I went to Rondonia with the Schmidt family, and I went with like one of those Emil trips. And so you just had to know the right people who would put those trips together, find out how much it cost. I think it cost me, like $8,000 or $9,000 or something like that for the whole trip. It wasn't cheap, but how often can you get to the Amazon rainforest, right? Especially with other collectors. I wouldn't want to go there with just,
A lot of it's broke off now.
that's what I mean. And I'm very glad I went.
Even like maybe not exactly the Amazon, but group collecting trips, like there's hosts, there's people that take you out.
I would be interested in that because, I don't know much about it because that was then and this is now. And kind of after COVID, it kind of like everything just went into pieces.
And you went with the Schmidt family, like Justin Schmidt?
This Schmidt family, there was a German family that they had a big piece of land in Randonia. And everything around them, the government encouraged for people to burn. And these people fought it for a long time. It was the only green, am I correct? Correct?
Yeah.
It was the only green spot left in that they really were. And I think eventually it's going to go. They destroyed it.
Yeah. Well, I was also in Ecuador in Tinolandia on the same kind of thing. And that didn't work out too well because I was in a car crash. I was actually in a taxi that was hit by a bus with Dale Colby, and some of you know Dale Colby. Does anybody remember Dale Colby? He moved recently to I know Steve Kutcher remembers Dale Colby, right? Probably Jim Hope. And well, he went away. He's living, by the way, in North Carolina with his son. He just got sick and tired of moving where he was living in Costa Mesa. He got out with a getting was good or something like that. But I kind of envy him because he's in a nice forested area that would be great collecting. And I asked him, "What's going on?" "Oh, there's not much, bub." He was said, "Bub, hey, bub, hey, bub." But anyway, getting back to these trips, I would love to know more about people. And here's something beyond that. I would love to know people are doing snorkeling trips and shell collecting trips, because that's the other thing we're really, really, really into is collecting seashells and specific varieties, Conus and Cypria and things like that are very famous collector items on the shell world. And so apart from rainforests, tropical reefs are my favorite thing to be hanging around in. A coral reef at low tide, yum, yum, yum. But anyway, wouldn't it be nice to know if people are doing that? I don't even know if they're doing it. Like, when you think about it, the only shell shop is the one up in Morro Bay. You've ever been to that place up in Morro Bay? Anybody? It's a fantastic shop that sells fantastic shells, and you can walk in there and look at it. It's like a museum for sale, all these shells. What?
Don't, I know the bridge hills used to travel abroad and go collecting, and,
That was when,
Jeannie and, Dave go on these trips and collect insects abroad.
yeah, you're talking about, I'm trying to think of the name. Well, Jeannie, oh, you're talking about Dave Bridge? No, Dave Faulkner? Dave Faulkner, our own Dave Faulkner and Jeannie Bellman. Yeah, they're going, they went to Madagascar, right? Was that the last one? Last meeting. It was wonderful. I was hanging on the edge of my seat. But I was wondering, she said, oh, it was wonderful snorkeling, but not one picture of snorkel, not one tip of the snorkel that I see. So I was on her. I said, come on, don't tease me like that.
But they're always moving.
Yeah, they're always going all over the place. I do believe there might be somebody doing something, but it's just cut down to almost nothing now. I looked online and just like about, you probably remember them going to Hawaii. Sharon and I are going to go the Hawaiian trip, remember? And I looked online to see if there was any shell dealers or shell stores, even for the tourists, even, yeah, even the trumpets and stuff. Nothing is for sale anymore. Nothing. It's been cut out. Yeah, let's go.
People and you can continue without.
Absolutely. Okay, so shall I just say my last things and say, yeah. Well, that's the way it is. As Walter Cronkite would say.
And we're going to start part 2 of Rick's presentation in 5 minutes.
I didn't know this. Part 2, that week.
So that's it. Feel free to walk around the cabin. And we're out of here. It looks like the Zoom should be done about now. If there's anybody